I wanted to have you on because you're my video guy. You're the one who has a fine-tuned eye for the product, and listen, I try to believe that I know the sport sometimes, but then I watch it and sometimes I'll just go, I'm really stupid and I really don't have a clue what's going on with some of these things, right? Like the power play and the penalty kills, the special teams in general. So far in March, it's 8 goals against, 1 goal for. And when I see some of the goals, I'm like, oh, that's because this guy didn't box out or this guy got lost or that's just a good play on the power play. But when it starts to get to, even in a small sample like this, when you start to see the numbers start to go that way, it can become concerning. And I think this is the most concerning one, is this one involves a larger sample, which is no playoff-bound team, and I read this in Luke Fox's article, has a worse penalty kill, 77%, 24th overall in the NHL, than the Toronto Maple Leafs. So let's start with the penalty kill. They trade for some guys. They wanted to get better, and since they've traded for those guys, it's been nothing but deplorable. Are you seeing... Is it like guys need more time to coalesce? There's hope for this thing. What are you seeing with the penalty kill right now?
Yeah, well, you'll be pleased to know I did do some video knowing we were going to chat about some of this stuff today, more on the power play. But for the penalty kill, I do think that there is hope for it. And I think the most hopeful thing is that, that's a season-long total of their penalty killing. And certainly they have changed Lyubushkin and Edmondson, who are going to be 2 of the guys they use the most. And Dewar played on the top pair without Marner. I don't know if he'll be top, penalty kill 1 or not, but he'll be out there a lot. And those guys do need a little time. Like, you look at those goals against, and, one of them is Dewar not closing in a situation where, he's not used to the way the Leafs rotate. And Edmondson has also, not played with these partners. Like, these guys are just going to take a sec on the PK. I don't think they're going to be a great penalty killing team. But if you throw out Marner, Yarncroc, and Dewar, Kampf, I like that 4. You're totally fine. And then I trust what they've got on the back end too. They got a lot of guys who block shots. I think their PK is going to get better. I don't think it's going to be one of the elite ones necessarily, but I think it's better than 77%.
Okay. I think that's needed. I think if it's that,
yeah.
I think if it's this come playoff
You're playing Boston
time,
or Florida.
Yeah,
all those PPs do is score.
Yeah, they're dead. Here's the thing is, I think you were kind of accepting, even though in years past they have had better penalty kills, but I think you are sort of accepting that, okay, while it maybe not, they're going to be the worst among playoff teams, that can sort of normalize to a degree. That, the power play was always just going to be a unit that was special. And part of the streak, right, was feeling as though it was a real weapon again. Like, I had that confidence where they would go out on the ice during the winning streak, and it was just, if you took a penalty against them, you were dead. They were going to pump one in the back of the net. Matthews was going to be in his spot, and he was probably going to rip one behind you, and you're going to go, holy crap, that was amazing. Again, Marner's out for some of this, but what do you, like, when you did all this video breakdown, what was the number one thing you noticed when it comes to, like, why it might be consistently struggling as of late?
Yeah, the Marner thing is certainly relevant. First, let's do Lilligren and Riley on the power play together last game, which is a disaster.
Well, I don't know why they tried that.
I don't know either.
When the dumb idiots like me are like, why is this happening? Wait, nobody does this anymore? Then that's bad, Like, that's bad.
And I think the real concern is that now they've got it so Lilligren is going to be on the top unit. He took 4 or 5 shots on the power play last game, which were rally killers. Like, I know we all want guys to shoot. We're always yelling shoot. But the days are gone where you just throw everything at the net. Like, you have to look for a good quality opportunity, ideally a one-timer where you're making the goaltender move or a low play. So he just threw pucks at the net, and often, like, it takes a while to get established. They break in, they finally win the puck back, they get set up, and he sifts one in, and then, the rally's over. And I hate the idea that they're like, well, Lilligren will shoot it. He'll actually shoot it, Riley doesn't, because that to me is that's not a good shot attempt. So that's one thing I don't love. The other thing is just, without Marner, who handles the puck a lot for them, whose hands is the puck going to be in on the power play? Like, Tavares just kind of one touches it, and Matthews is mostly looking to be the shooter. So it's Nylander, and Nylander stunk last game. He's been bad on the power play in terms of making plays, and he's not this elite setup guy like Mitch is. So there's just, if you're going to have someone on the power play, it has to be Domi or someone who can handle the puck and likes to have possession of it a little bit. Because right now it just looks like no one is comfortable holding onto the puck and looking for a play because they're a bunch of shooters.
I don't understand the reluctance to put Domi on power play one, like without Marner. It just feels like he would be such an obvious fit to be some, Marner light with that unit.
Yeah, you know what, too, is like, I think the more you do it, the better he would get at it, in that I think he would want to impress you right away, and he'd make some risky passes and turn things over. But if you just let him be the guy sometimes, I feel like, it's okay to just sort of move it around the outside and look for things and not force things. Because my problem with Domi is sometimes he forces things, and he can make great plays, but if you could get a patient version of him handling the puck on the flank, I would be okay with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd like to see it. I'd like to see what it looks like more than what we're currently seeing. And yeah, I think that's interesting when you point out the Nylander thing, because it's one of those, I haven't pointed it out watching the games, but as you're saying it, I really do think that since, I would say around the Boston game, it has felt as though he has been far more careless with the puck. And maybe this is wrong, but I would like to see what the turnover rate for him has been as of late.
Because funny you say that. I was going to look into that after watching those power plays. He turned it over at least 5 times.
Yeah, like he's been way more just, whoopsie, that didn't go my way. Now it's exiting the zone. My bad. Now this has turned into a breakaway the other way. I was trying to do a little toe drag. I was trying to look cool.
It almost happened again last game.
Yeah, he's like Chris Farley and Billy Bassett. But you could imagine what it would be like. Where,
what if I had done that?
Well, you can imagine what it would be like. Okay, so I guess basically what you're surmising is you don't love the Lilligren move, but do you think they stick with Lilligren when Marner comes back? Like, is this what we're trying to do is break up this look now, but when the guy comes back who can move the puck and who does distribute it and who does feel really dangerous on that unit, we're going to go back to the status quo of what was working?
I think they'll go back to the status quo. Just like, it's funny because every year they're like, maybe Rasmus Sandin can replace Morgan Rielly in the power play, or whatever. It's go get Klingberg. Like, they've tried forever to find someone. Like, Morgan does it capably. He doesn't make great plays. He's just fine, and he can kind of facilitate things. And Lilligren, to me, that's the last option of the 5 guys on the ice you want to shoot it. So I don't think that will last necessarily. But the big conclusion is just this. If you look at Tampa Bay's power play, Edmonton's power play, Boston's power play, the big difference is personnel. No one is doing anything unbelievably unique. Everyone's in a 1-3-1. McDavid skates a little bit more than the other guys, actually kind of get circling the zone. But by and large, it's just down to the guys who are good players, being good players and making plays. And right now, the guys, whether it's because they're too lax or they've had bad luck or, Marner out messes things up, whatever it is, the personnel has not played good hockey on the power play.
I do feel for these guys to a certain degree. Like, I know that's a horrible thing to say to some people in this market. They're like, you feel for the guys who are making the most amount of money ever and who haven't done anything in the playoffs, blah, blah, blah. But it's just the dog days hitting them again, Like, this is a normal dog days for any players, and yet the Leafs, here they are after the Boston series going, well, this is the reality. Like, we're facing Boston in round 1. Let's try to remain focused. You're like, okay,
awful. Worst case scenario. This is supposed to be the year they're gonna, play the way in and fight for a spot till the end. And
but that's what I mean. Is that okay? Again, false equivalency number 2. I have the same difficulty locking in now to these games. Like, we've reached the point of the season where I'm like, okay, buddy, you got to lock in, you got to watch this game, right? Like, you got to watch. And then all of a sudden I'll find myself, in the second period of some nights, if it's not a great game, being like, oh, my interest is drifting. I got to
put your phone under the fridge or something. You're like,
correct. I'm like, don't look at the NBA game that you so much would rather watch right now. Just keep watching this. Keep focused on this. So I do get it. And honestly, that was kind of part of what I wanted to hear, was that it's just some guys not executing. I guess, like with the Marner injury update, that it's not going as well as they had hoped, which is never the thing you like to hear, right? Like, we tried it and it was bad, and you're like, oh, it's okay.
It's just a high ankle. Those are known for quick recovery.
Yeah, well, actually, that was kind of a surprising thing to me too. I was like, oh wait, I thought this was his knee, and now it's a high ankle, and you thought he was going to be back in 2 days. Like, what happened here?
That is actually the most stunning part, is that they called him day to day, and they knew he had a high ankle and had previously had a high ankle in the same ankle.
Yeah, like why? Why did they do that? Why did they have it where they were like, tell everyone that he's skating again and he'll be probably fine? It's like, oh, wait, he's not. He tried to skate on high ankle. But, yeah, how much time would you want for these guys to kind of be back and trying to get back in that rhythm? Because if I was going to express my true fear in this, is that they're like, to tie it back to the sports psychology element, is that one of my biggest issues with them always is that when things start to feel too familiar, they might just be overthinking it because they've seen it have this happen many, many times, and they've felt that power play tense up and choke up and not execute in playoff series before. And I would just feel like, from a rhythm and groove and confidence standpoint, that you would at least want, like, we've only got a month left in the season here, you know? Yeah. So I would want to have, a certain section of games where you can start to get that groove back.
Yeah, I mean, as much as like you'd love to have it clicking all the time, I don't think it's ridiculous to say if they have a couple weeks, if they get to play, 6-7 games or something in a row and kind of find their groove again, I don't think that's, not enough hockey. This unit's been together for 7 years by and large. So, it's not so much that for the special teams. It's just, you want everyone feeling at the peak of their game. The one thing that I do take out of this is, like, Kyper on our show is always talking about how, Marner plays too much and runs out of gas at the end of the year. Well, here's a little break. Riley had himself a little break. Maybe these guys will have a bit more in the tank than they have in past years in playoffs.
See, I like that take. And even as you're saying it, I'm like, the spin is actually also to be like, if Marner isn't there, there is no psychology component, because they're like, who cares? We don't have our guy. And then maybe the longer it takes for him to get back, like, they can't go through a lull with him. Like, if you go with a lull with him in there, maybe then guys are like, oh no, it's happening again. If he's not there, you can't really think that, So there we go. Yeah.
We're all in our heads today.
No, this is a Galaxy Brain segment now.
Yeah.
This is really I'm like, Bourne, I want you to come on to actually give me the X's and O's of the power play. And now I'm like, here's what I think is good, not playing for brains. That's where we landed. Okay, where are you at with the Lilligren thing, though, by the way? Because I did a little segment yesterday. I looked it up in March. I think part of the reason that they're even putting him on the power play is I think that they're aware of some of the stuff you're talking about, right? Like, maybe he is shooting it too much. Maybe he is being a little too aggressive. But that they're also playing the confidence game with a player who has struggled with confidence on the stretch. In March, he's their number 2 player, 5-on-5, and expected goals for. Behind, by the way, guess who's number 1?
Ooh, boy. Sorry, I'm taking my time with this. Number 1. God, I don't know. Camp.
John Tavares.
Really?
Yep. Expected goals for, 5-on-5, number 1 in March. Again, small sample.
Like
We're only.
He looked great last game.
That's what I'm just saying that people like to hammer him, but and listen, I don't think he's the same player, but it's kind of good evidence of, hey, with better matchups, this guy can still thrive, and you want him to be able to dominate. You're doing the secondary scoring narrative. There's a good one for you. But yeah, so Lilligren, the numbers are better, but he's always been a guy where the numbers you could usually point to, hey, some regular season success is happening here. And then I mentioned yesterday as well that the postseason numbers, like, there's nothing that you can do. Even if you're the biggest Lilligren defender, there's no analytic for you. I'm sorry. I looked at them. They're atrocious. They're bad. They're all on the wrong side of the ledger. But yeah,
I have thoughts.
Okay, What are they?
My thoughts are this. There is no player that I've watched over the Leafs last, Matthews Marner era who is affected more by quality of competition than Timothy Lilligren.
Yeah.
So if you play him on the third pair, he'll be great. His expected goals for will be great. He will be in the right side of shot share. All will go well. You move him up the lineup, and all of a sudden he's playing first lines, him and Riley or whoever, he gets eaten alive. You play him in game 57 against a mid-level team, he'll look really good. And actually, that's when he had a run this year where everyone's going, hey, Lilligren, like, we're starting to find it. And then you put him out there against the really good teams. You go into Boston, those 2 games against Boston, home and away, and all of a sudden he's really not good. So he is not a quad A player the way that I would say some AHL player, NHL fringe are, but he's like a third pair, second pair guy where if you put him too high up, he can't quite do it. But if he's against competition he can handle, he can be really, really good.
Okay, so last thing for me. I want to talk a little bit about the GM meetings because I think mostly they're useless and it's kind of like a bunch of guys who like to get a little vacation and hang out with their buddies.
I know, we got to get on that somehow.
Yeah, and it's like every single year they're always like, we're examining this. And it's like, what did? They're like, nothing.
That is the best part. Yeah. Here's what's on the docket. What'd you guys decide? Nothing.
Yeah, what they decided is Gary stood up there and went, everything's cool. And everyone went, yeah, we agree, Gare. We agree.
Agreed.
Yeah.
G-Man.
The only, I loved this one is there's like this buzz of guys are going to tee off on Peril. So I was like, okay, but what does that mean? They're like, we want some time to chew them out for why things are the way they are. And it's like, okay.
Where did we land on that, guys? What got settled?
Yeah,
we got slightly intimidated by George when we saw him and said things are okay.
I was just going to say, I really, really want to see some of the GMs. Like, I really want to see Kyle Dubas go up to George Peros and be like, I got a big issue with you, buddy, and poke him in the chest. He's like, I don't think so. No. I really don't think so. But my question to you is, before I got one more joke on this, because I was reading through the stuff, and they're like, this isn't going to change, this isn't going to change. But my favorite one was, like, people are outlining, they're going to discuss 3-on-3, but they don't want to tinker with it. It's like, what's the point? Like, what are we doing here? They're already
What was the conversation?
Yeah, it's like, I know. It's like they need to make up fake work beforehand to be like, we are talking about stuff. We're not all just drinking on the beach and playing golf out here. We discussed 3-on-3. We're going to discuss it. We'll certainly discuss it. No, we won't.
It's very funny because, like, the idea is that there's a possibility that if there was nothing to discuss, they wouldn't get together. You know, like, is that like? Sorry, there's just nothing to discuss, so we're not going to go on the trip. Like, they're going on the trip.
Dumbest thing. It's the dumbest thing year over year over year. But I do like to use it as a marker of, like, things that should actually change, because I like to look at it as though I was in a position of power to bring up an issue that I have with the game. And I'm curious if you would have one. Like, if we were GMs and we were heading down to the GM meetings and we knew that it wasn't just a farce and we knew that we weren't just going to be, hanging out on the beach having a Mai Tai or playing golf, what would you try to table?
It's a good question. I do feel like the playoff format has gotten enough pushback from fans where it's like, not only do people not enjoy or not fully understand the way that it works. If you're just a passive fan looking at the standings, I think it's complicated for people. But, it kills playoff races, man. Like, it kills this last month, where the Leafs, because of where they are in their division, that they can't be caught or catch anyone. Whereas if you do 1-8, it's you're jockeying constantly. And I think that's fun. It's fun to say, hey, here's who would play who if it started today. And it's just a better meritocracy that way. It's more fair that if you finish higher up than other teams, you should play a lesser team.
Yep.
These teams all play each other almost the exact amount of games, regardless of division or not, in the same conference. So it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's been one that they've stuck with forever and ever and ever. And I think that's a huge one. For me, it's simply the NBA just had basically, Adam Silver came out and expressed concern for AAU basketball and the way that they develop young basketball players in North America. And I thought that was really interesting. Like, they're going to be examining it. They're going to be looking at it. Like, and this year's draft, you're going to see more and more talk about it, because this year at the NBA draft, there's a good shot that the top 5 guys are all international players. And it's not a particularly deep draft or whatever, but it's like, look around the NBA landscape right now. It's like Luka Doncic and, it's all... Like, people don't know who the best American-born player is right now. They're like, I guess it's kind of this guy, it might be that guy, but it's a lot of international players. And so they're just looking at how they're developing. And if I was there, I would want to know if hockey is doing a similar thing, where they're like, hey, the professionalization of some of these guys at the age that they're at and how intense it becomes, are we losing love for the game? Like,
yes.
Is it becoming a skills competition?
Well, see, this is the thing. So my son is in hockey, and he's 7. He turns 8 this summer. And the thing that I always thought that made it cool to be on a team was being on a team. You guys go to practice together. Maybe you travel and play a game at another rink. You're a part of this sort of unit. And right now they go out and they play half ice hockey essentially. So there's 4 teams on the ice at once, and they just throw them on the ice. And then the only other ice time they get is skills coaching. just skills where they just handle pucks, and like there's no team practice where the coach puts them through something or whatever and you're with the guys. It's just 4 teams on the ice at once doing skills, and everything is from when he put on skates. They're like, are you guys going to do the skills session next week? It's $240. It's at it's like skills, man. It's like an obsession right now, rather than just getting to be kind of a part of a club of guys who try to beat another club of guys.
Yeah, I just think really if there's you should have practice. You should be able to work on skills. That's fine, but it's like it always feels like things are behind, like there's a lag. So for quite some time where it wasn't training, it was like you wanted to have more skills training because that was a way to get into the NHL or a way to go pro or a way to be better. If you didn't have the other stuff, right? The size and the speed or the other stuff. And then it's like now it feels like there's an oversaturation point where you go, okay, but maybe focus on some of the other stuff. Like this is there's a playbook for this as a coach, essentially. Like you can be like, I got the skills training thing program from a certain guy and we can do this. And it feels more like, again, as an outside observer of this, that it's become more, uniform. Basically,
yeah,
the way
I agree.
They do
and
things.
so I think the point I'm trying to make is that not that the skills way is not the best way to develop them as hockey players, because I think it is. I think it makes better hockey players, but I think if you made it more fun, like they were a team and really enjoyed it, you'd keep more people in hockey and you would find more good players. People drop out right now because it's immediately a professional sport where you're training from the second you start playing.
Dude, it seems so intense, and some of the price, like obviously the price is nuts. Like I talked to a parent like at a Super Bowl party, and he was going over what the cost is for his, I want to say 11-year-old son, and I was like,
it's gross.
But I was like looking at him being like, how could you justify this? I don't even care how rich you are. That's insane. Like that's.
Oh yeah, 1 week of hockey camp for the summer for 7-year-olds, like $650.
Yeah.
It's like,
I'm talking about this guy being on a team that was in the, the tens of thousands of dollars for his team. And I'm like, huh? He's 11.
No.
Like,
I'm going to have a hard time with it, I'll be honest. Like, he's going to have to really love it for that to be justifiable.
Here's what I'll say. If I had a kid, there's no amount they could love it that it would ever be justifiable.
You better get real good at something that costs no money.
You better be so great at this that you start to get, angel investors, essentially, like people in the community are like, Bunk, we need to fund this because it's so great.
Yeah.
You're depriving the next year. I'd be like, I don't know. I can't be a part of this. Like
$10K.
And then you wonder why some of these hockey parents freak out and do stupid things. Because you talk to some former players you and I both know that are involved in youth sports, and they're like, you would be shocked that there'd be a parent that would go up and try to have a discussion about strategy and gameplay and all this different stuff with like a former professional hockey player who like made it and did it and who runs programs. And you're like, oh yeah, because your brain is broken because you're paying $10,000 to have your kid play in 11-year-old hockey and he doesn't get a shift, and you're in the car and you're like, you're thinking about all the stuff you didn't get. And it's like, I'm surprised there aren't more hockey parent incidents, to be honest.
It's actually so true. It's like, you pay that money. It's not going to guarantee your kid's going to be on the power play.
No, but you're like, it should.
Yeah.
What are we paying all this money for? You're like, I don't know. Yeah. What's the lady from Full House that tried to buy her way into college?
Oh yeah. Is it Becky? Was that her?
I can't remember. Anyway, I don't want to say the wrong name because I have a name in my head, but I don't think that's right.
All right.
But either way, it kind of feels like that, where you're all trying to be that. Anyways, Justin Bourne, go read the column. It's going to be up on Sportsnet.
Lori.
That's what I was going to say. Lori Loughlin was my guess.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
all
so
right.
is it right? It's just that's a real tough one to be like, hey, it's the wrong name, that was my guess, is Lori Loughlin. Anyway, Justin Bourne, thanks for doing Leafs Talk tonight, brother. I appreciate it.
No problem, man. Enjoy the show.
See you, pal.